Well, the video is finally here. Sorry it has taken me so long to get to it, but it's here now. No more complaints. Let's get to how I increased my bench press so quickly over these past couple of weeks.
So while you busy trying to fit in, I'ma stand out and view my life through this lens to see how it pans out.
Alright guys, so here it is, how I increased my bench press over the past couple of weeks. And this video is kind of going to go into a little bit of detail. Again, this is just my experience and this is just me, like how I increase my bench press. Not necessarily how you can, but maybe you can implement some of the things that I did, and either it gives you like a base to kind of build off of, or maybe some of the things that I did actually work completely for you. I don't know, but I figured I would share this. Maybe it helps some of you out. Right, so first up, the biggest thing that has helped my bench press throughout this process of powerlifting is going from beltless to belted bench press. And I know that sounds crazy because a lot of people are like, why do you need to protect your back while you're benching? Well, that's not necessarily the only thing that a belt does. Like, yes, it does provide protection for your back, but it doesn't do it necessarily because the belt is leather or the thickness of the belt or the padding in the belt. It does it through a compression. Okay, so basically by being able to press your core, right, by being able to brace or push your core out against the belt, that creates compression, and that compression stabilizes your spine. Okay, and so when I belted for bench press, I wasn't trying to necessarily stabilize my spine, but stabilize in general was exactly what I wanted out of it, and that's exactly what I got. So my first tip is to, if you are not using a belt on bench press, especially if you have a smaller waist, is to slap that belt on and try it for your bench press, because it gives you something to brace against, which thus stabilizes you a little bit more. So while you're going throughout that press, you have a nice stable position, you're not rocking back and forth, and you can really focus on just pressing the weight. All right, the next thing, so the second biggest thing that has helped my bench press is adjusting my grip. And I don't mean my grip width, I mean my actual grip on the bar, like how I hold the bar. And I think this is insanely important. Now, when it comes to the grip, I'm in the USAPL, we grip all the way around the bar, and really honestly, anyone that does a suicide grip, it kind of bewilders me a little bit. It blows my mind because, it's called a suicide grip for a certain reason. It really should just be called like the idiot grip. And if you're an idiot, you use this grip because it's really just not safe. You're basically gambling with your life every time you bench, because the second if that bar slips right out of your hand, right there, because you're not holding on to anything. If the bar slips out of your hands, goodbye, see you later. It was nice knowing you. You made a little bit of gains before you died. Okay, so we're wrapping that thumb all the way around the bar in all of this explanation. But basically, a lot of people take the bar and they take it out and their wrist is kind of cocked back or bent backwards. And that's not very optimal. I want you to think about, applying force, right? If you were to punch somebody, you wouldn't punch somebody like this, right? This would not be a very strong punch. And also, it just looks really bad, right? Okay, but like this, right, we can apply a bunch of force and get a really solid punch out of that. And that's essentially what we want out of the bench press, right? The straighter we can push force, the straighter the line we can push a force into, the greater force output that we have. So straighten up that grip, basically bring that wrist, stack it on top of that elbow. Make sure that you're gripping the bar where you can hold your fist to the ceiling, right? Those knuckles to the ceiling. So that way every time you're pressing, you're creating the most forceful punch you can. And that is the second most important thing that I have added into adjusting this bench press to start making some gains. third, this is the grip width. And through my time working with Joe, we worked on a lot of things. Grip width was something that I applied like before we started working together. And this was basically the meet before 2016 USAPL Raw Nationals. I decided to widen my grip for prep for USAPL Raw Nationals, and it did my bench press wonders leading into that meet. And that was really the only adjustment that I made to my bench press throughout that prep. But just adjusting my grip, making it wider. Now, you need to understand something. When you widen a grip of any sort, yes, you reduce the range of motion, but at the same time, you weaken yourself. Because the further away from the midline you are, right, the further away from the center of mass that you are, the weaker or the less velocity or power that you can actually push out, okay? So, you're shortening the range of motion, but you're also sacrificing power every time you inch yourself away from the bar. You need to understand that. The other thing you need to understand is once you basically reach where your arm is directly over your elbow when you come down to the bottom of the press, anything outside of that, you're going to lose even more power because you're creating adverse torque, right? You're not adding to the lift. So, that being said, you need to play with a grip that allows you to decrease range of motion as much as possible, but that doesn't get so wide that you lose power. So you have to play within those two things. And the reason we want to decrease range of motion, for those of you thinking that, is that's one of the factors that we can affect, right? So power is just force times distance over time, right? Force times distance divided by time. So the force is always increasing, or at least we hope so, right? Because the force is the amount of weight that we're moving. The distance that we move the bar, right, we can decrease that range of motion a little bit, and that gives us a benefit, right? Because the shorter the distance, hopefully the shorter the time, and if we can reduce those two, that means we have greater force output, right? We have more power, and that's the goal. So we're widening our grip to decrease the range of motion, but remember, too wide, you're gonna screw things up, and too close, well, the range of motion is extremely long, so you're gonna lose a little bit of power there. So play with that in between, find it, and rock it out. And last but not least is the setup. And I break my setup down into 4 parts, and this is just because I think it's really, really important that you focus on each one of these parts separately and not as a whole. And a lot of people, kind of like get into they think of their setup as like one whole thing. But I really want you to think about it as breaking it down. So the very first thing that I do is I set my shoulders. And this is how I set my shoulders. You'll see it on the screen right above me. So if you kind of want to like take that, implement it, you can. But basically, set your shoulders. Okay? So if you think about how an arc is made or how a bridge is built, right? It's built from either end and then connected in the middle. It's not built from the middle and then drawn out to the ends, right? You build the ends, then you connect the middle. So that's what we're going to do with our arch. We're going to build the ends and then connect the middle. So starting with the shoulders, we get our shoulders set in a nice groove. They're good. Our scapula is retracted. Basically, we're squeezing our shoulder blades together, keeping everything nice and tight there. Next, we set our feet, right? And what we want to do is we want to basically scoot our feet as close to our shoulders as possible, like literally as close as you can possibly get them, while keeping your feet flat on the ground. And this is huge, right? Third is your butt should not be resting on the bench. It should be touching, but it should not be resting. All of the weight should be in your shoulders and in your feet. That is a huge, huge tip, and I think a lot of people, use their butt, like rest their butt on the bench. Keep the weight in your shoulders and your feet. Again, the bridge, right? The bridge built from the ends and then connected in the middle, okay? So, you got your feet scooted all the way in, right? As close as you can get them. The weight is loaded on your feet, the weight is loaded on your shoulders, and then from there, you're good to go. Take your deep breath, make your press. And that's basically it, guys. Those are the 4 things that have helped me bench better in a very, very short amount of time. So belting, adding that bracing sequence where I can keep the stability of my bench press and I can just focus on the press itself. Secondly, the grip. Adjusting my grip to where I've got everything in a straight line so that all the force that I output is as high as it can possibly be. Third is how wide I'm gripping, making sure that I'm reducing range of motion without sacrificing too much power. And fourth is the setup, making sure that I'm setting the ends of that bridge and then letting the arch create itself and not necessarily just arching my back, right? That's it, guys. Those are the tips. Sorry this took so long to get to you. Every time I tried to render it, it failed, and then I deleted the video footage and then a bunch of other stuff. It sucks, but it's out, it's good, you got it now. Hopefully, this brings you some new gains in the new year. All right, I'm out. Peace out, nerds. Stay muscular, Dad.